his other advisors say that we need more saving and more incentives for the rich. This is class war talk.
Now, you also say, with regard to his State of the Union speech, that instead of helping debtors, most of us, Mr. Obama has moved to heal the creditors.
That's right. Let's take the situation as it was a year ago when he took office. Debts were far in excess of the ability of most people to pay. For instance, 1/4 of American real estate, not only homes by consumers, but also office buildings, is in negative equity. That means that people owe more of a mortgage on their homes or buildings than the property's worth. Now, under normal conditions in the past, for the last 4,000 years, when people owe more than they have to pay, the debts are wiped out. There's a transfer of property. One way or another, the debts are reduced to the ability to pay. That's sort of a basic mathematical principle. But what the Obama policy is, which is being pursued by Mr. Bernanke, is let's reinflate the economy. Let's give government programs to subsidize new home buyers to afford to bid higher prices for homes so that we can get this property out of negative equity so that the banks won't take a loss. But instead of saving the banks from taking a loss on these mortgages, they're telling people, don't walk away from your mortgages. Even if you owe more, whatever you do, don't do what Donald Trump does. Don't do what Tishman Speyer does. Don't do what any Wall Street and real estate owner did. And in fact, what Goldman Sachs did last week, they walk away from their mortgages when they're in negative equity, when they're not worth paying. Take the case in New York recently. The largest residential investment in housing in the United States is Stuyvesant Town, which was built after World War II by MetLife. They got CalPERS, the California Employees Union, the Church of England, and other people, and went to them and said, we have a wonderful deal. We're going to buy the largest residential development, and we're going to kick the people out. We're going to throw people who've lived there 30 years onto the street, despite the fact that these are largely public sector employees that live in Stuyvesant Town, just like your public sector employees in California. We're going to throw them out, illegally raise rent, stop services, and we're going to make a mint for you by doing this. So the Church of England and CalPERS said, that's a wonderful idea. Let's screw the renters and do it. Well, it turned out that the renters went to court in New York and said these guys are breaking the law, and the judge ended up fining Tishman Speyer, the large real estate investment firm, for its illegal actions. The mayor said, oh my God, this is a crisis. If you apply the law to protect consumers, to protect renters, you're going to bankrupt all of these financial investors. The case is still in the court. Nobody knows what rent the people are owning, but meanwhile, Tishman Speyer said, we're walking away from the property. Thank God that although it's a $5 billion property, we only put $112 million of our own money in there. So we're losing it, but all these other guys are losing it. Thank God it's them, not us. Thank God that most of the loss, $500 billion, is the California workers. They've lost. The Church of England's lost $100 million, and other investors have also been wiped out. They've walked away. The way to cure the consumer problem in the United States for many homeowners would be if they would do just what Tishman Speyer and Goldman Sachs and other firms do and say, the negative equity, we're going to walk away from the house, we're not liable, give it back to the bank, and then we'll buy it back for 50 cents on the dollar, or if you're in Nevada or Florida, 30 cents on the dollar, and we'll save the money. Why should we pay the bank more than a property is worth? That's crazy. Wall Street wouldn't do it. Economic rationality says don't do it. The fact is that most homeowners do not act in the way the textbooks say an economic rational person would act. A few years ago, I think I've said it before in your program, bankers discovered that the poor are honest. That means that they believe they should repay the debts. This is like saying the poor are suckers, because Wall Street never pays its debts if it can avoid it. In fact, Wall Street tries to avoid putting its own money in projects at all and prefers to use other people's money, especially pension fund money or mutual fund money, and Church of England money and California employees' money, and gamble with that. And that basically is what's been happening now. Well, the idea of the Obama administration and Bernanke is, let's reinflate the market. If we give more money to home buyers on easier credit terms, then they can begin to bid up the price of property and get the banks out of this negative equity situation so that we can protect ourselves from homeowners acting rationally and just walking away from the property and buying an identical home somewhere else at half the price. That's what the whole real estate and financial issue is in the United States today.
Right. So what they're saying, what the government is saying, is that saving the system means saving the bubble economy.
That's what they mean. Not saving industry, not saving the industrial economy, but continue to save a bubble. And the problem with the bubble is it has to keep growing exponentially, because all of these debts, the mortgage debts and the consumer loans and the loans to students, all bear interest. And as the interest is paid to the banks turn around and they relend this out to find yet new borrowers. So they have to keep finding a wider and wider array of borrowers to take this credit on. And this means the debt grows all the more. And the debts grow faster than the economy's ability to pay. Something has to give. And at a point, the debts will be written down. And if you want a dress rehearsal of what this will look at, you look at countries like Latvia or Iceland, where real estate prices have fallen by 70%, where the government is told to close down hospitals, close down schools. The economy's bankrupt. This should be looked at as the dress rehearsal for what's happening here, because it's in countries like Latvia and the other post-Soviet economies where the Obama team has had completely free play to design the economies from scratch. This is the Larry Summers crowd of Rubenomics advisors, Geithner, Summers, and the rest, that had the free hand in deindustrializing Russia and essentially wrecking its economy and driving it bankrupt and leaving it in the state that it's in today. You look at what the Obama crowd did in Russia and the Latvia, the Baltics, and the others that are now insolvent, and you'll see exactly the same game plan that they're trying to do for the United States.
I'm speaking with financial economist and historian Dr. Michael Hudson. Today's show, Obama's Republican class war presidency. I'm Bonnie Faulkner. This is Guns and Butter. Now, you say that saving the system means saving a mess. Could you explain that?
The mess is the debt. The mess is the debt in excess of the ability to be paid. That if the government is going to keep going to the banks, as the Fed has done with $2 trillion and said, give us your junk mortgages, no questions asked, we're going to give you U.S. Treasury bonds for them so that your balance sheet is not going to have to take a loss. Well, then you're going to have bad private sector debts, these junk mortgages, and in almost every package of mortgage you have consumer fraud involved. All of a sudden, you have the government, the Treasury, creating $2 trillion worth of government bonds, turning them over to the Fed, that gives them to the Wall Street banks and takes on the junk. That's why it's called a cash for trash swap. Well, that's what's increasing the federal debt. The federal debt is not increasing in the way that Keynes talked about, running a budget deficit and spending on infrastructure and hiring people to raise wage levels. It's done in a way that doesn't raise wage levels at all, but simply keeps the debt bubble growing, but it replaces the private debt with a public debt. So now American taxpayers which doesn't mean Wall Street, are going to have to pay higher and higher taxes to pay the interest charges on this debt, and the interest charges are going to crowd out the ability of the government to spend on social services, on infrastructure, and that's exactly why Mr. Obama said, we've given so much to Wall Street, there's no money left for the people. There's a freeze, and that's why he said he wants to get the Republicans on board to make a bipartisan committee, which means a Republican committee,